9 spine-chilling Halloween encounters exposed. Terrifying stories that will haunt your sleep. Jessica's heart pounded as she drove through Maplewood, the usually welcoming streetlights casting eerie shadows that danced against her windshield. October had always brought a thrill to the small suburban town, yet tonight felt different, ominous. As she passed the empty park, she caught sight of Mr. Collins, her neighbor, hunched over in the dim light. He was usually the jovial man behind the town's beloved Halloween festival, but something in his posture, the way his eyes glinted like daggers, sent a wave of ice through her veins. "Just shake it off, it's just Halloween." She shook her head, focusing on the chaos at home. The demands of her job as an overnight nurse were overwhelming. The clamor of her 2 kids, Tyler and Lily, felt especially loud in her mind. She pulled into the driveway, breathing in the bittersweet scent of fallen leaves, her phone buzzing violently against the console. "Jessica," Mike's voice trembled, chilling her to the bone. "The kids, they went to Mr. Collins' place. He took them for candy picking." Her blood turned to ice. Panic ignited. She bolted into the house. The familiar creaks of her home now felt threatening, the lights flickered unsettlingly. Images of their family, their twinkling smiles frozen like ghosts, twisted grotesquely in the fading light. "Kids!" she called. Silence. Just the echo of her voice met her ears. The weight of her fear crashed down. What if Mr. Collins was not just an eccentric neighbor? Chilling tales bubbled in her memory like sour wine. There were retreats to the darker corners of Halloween lore whispered among parents, hinting at children disappearing over the years. Maplewood held traditions, yes, but also shadows. Her thoughts were a storm as she snatched her phone, ready to call the police. "It's a Halloween prank, ma'am." The officer's voice was dismissive, specked with casual laughter that cut through her like a knife. Alone, with Mr. Collins' gaze lingering just beyond her every thought, desperation fueled her instincts. "I can't wait," she muttered, determination swelling and taking her feet forward. She sensed that he was a monster in her midst. As she approached his yard, movement flickered in the windows. Shadows curled and twisted like smoke before vanishing. Heart pounding, she understood, darkness was closing in. All at once, a loud thud rang out from Collins' house, a sound that dug deep into her core. What was happening? Her breath quickened, terror coiling in her stomach like a snake. She took a step back, her gut screaming that she was teetering on the edge of something unspeakable. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let us continue. The door stood before her, welcoming yet menacing. The rumors flooded back, an ancient tradition lurking beneath Maplewood's cozy exterior. Dread washed over her like ice water, freezing her resolve in place. A flicker of recognition crossed her mind, secrets that bound families to the town, ones that demanded sacrifices during the season's festivities. "Jessica," the chilling whisper echoed. The sight of Mr. Collins standing in the doorway, the twisted smile stretched unnaturally across his face, was too much to bear. "You shouldn't have come here." Her breath hitched. She realized the vastness of danger swirling within the shadows of her seemingly safe town. How could she protect her family from the monster hiding in plain sight? As the door creaked wider, she stood paralyzed between the allure of dark answers and the primal urge to flee, the looming dread settling heavy in the air. Jessica's instincts kicked in. Fight or flight? She knew which one she needed, but felt rooted in place. The twisted smile of Mr. Collins glinted under the pale porch light. It was a smile that promised horror, yet beckoned with a strange mix of familiarity. "Please, I need to see my kids." Jessica's voice trembled, caught between pleading and defiance. The unease settled in her belly like a stone. He leaned closer, the soft breeze carrying the scent of something faintly decaying. "They're safe, Jessica. Just come in and see for yourself." His eyes narrowed, and she could see that glimmer of something dangerous swirling within. No! She forced herself to take a step back. The thud inside the house sounded again, this time louder, a muffled sound, rich with despair. Panic clawed at her throat. This couldn't be happening. In that moment of hesitation, her mind flashed to images: Tyler's bright smile and Lily's mischievous giggle. Why had they gone in? Why hadn't they come when she called? She couldn't afford to think. She turned toward the side of the house, hoping to find another entrance, a way in that didn't involve that monster. As she did, branches snapped loudly behind her. Where do you think you're going? Mr. Collins' voice slithered through the air like ice. Jessica glanced back, caught in the headlights of his ravenous stare. I'll call the police! She shouted, the words barely escaping her quivering lips. But deep down, she feared that help wouldn't come in time. Help won't reach you in time for Halloween, dear, he mocked, his voice now laced with something akin to a growl. This town has its traditions, and you're on borrowed time. Disoriented, she dashed towards the back of the house, heart pounding like a drum in her chest. She needed to find another way. The darkness enveloped her like a shroud, branches snagging at her clothes, pulling at her, as if the very woods were alive with a sinister hunger. Then a light flickered through the window, illuminating a figure within. It was tiny, moving rapidly, and then it vanished. Her heart swelled with a mixture of dread and hope. Could it be Tyler or Lily? Kids! She screamed, desperation ringing through her voice. There! A shadow darted past the lit window. Her breath quickened. Without thinking, she pressed her back against the cold wall, feeling the rough texture print against her palms. She inched closer to the other side, hoping for a glimpse, not realizing that she hadn't escaped Mr. Collins' watchful gaze. The door creaked open, and the flicker of the light spilled out like teeth bared in a grimace. They're just playing hide and seek, Jessica. You should join the fun, he taunted, chuckling as if he held all the secrets of the night. Her gut twisted. Hide and seek? She was done playing games. With resolve fueling her next steps, Jessica thrust herself away from the wall and turned back toward Collins, her feet moving before her thoughts could catch up. She ran past him, through the door he held open, into the terrifying unknown, certain that she would uncover the truth about what lay inside. Each step echoed. Every creak felt amplified, mocking her. Shadows in the corners morphed, seemed to leap forward. The distant sounds of laughter twisted into something more sinister, as if the memories of the children had turned against her. Tyler! Lily! She yelled, a scream fueled by adrenaline and dread. Underneath the raucous laughter that surrounded her, she strained to hear anything familiar, something solid amid the chaos bound to the horrifying tales of Maplewood's Halloween. Come out, wherever you are. The whispers drew her further into the house, unfurling secrets from the dark corners where she never dared look. Just as she thought she could catch a glimpse of her children, a cold hand gripped her ankle, sending her crashing down. The world spun as she stared into the dark, her heart racing. Now you'll join them, Mr. Collins hissed, looming over her, darkness spilling from the shadows behind him. At that moment, she knew this was more than a game. It was a promise of something horrifying lurking just out of reach, waiting for Halloween to claim its next offering. Hard hammering, Jessica lay there, realizing she was caught between the threads of terror and truth, the very fabric of Maplewood unraveling beneath her. The door slammed shut behind her, sealing her fate within Mr. Collins' dark lair. What secrets lay beneath the surface of the town she thought she knew? Would she find her children in this nightmare, or had they become the very shadows that haunted her? The darkness wrapped around Jessica like a thick fog, muffling her breath and blurring her vision. She pushed herself up, panic coursing through her veins as the shadows wove in and out like tendrils grasping for her. The house seemed to breathe, each creak and groan resonating with a life of its own. Tyler! Lily! She called again, her voice a fragile whisper against the oppressive silence. How could they be playing hide and seek in a house like this? Fear gripped her heart tighter. The laughter she had heard, was it real, or just a cruel trick of her mind? She scrambled to her feet, the floorboards beneath her almost sinking, as if the house itself was trying to swallow her whole. Keeping close to the wall, Jessica felt for any familiar shapes, anything that could ground her in this surreal nightmare. Suddenly, the shadows shifted, and she spotted a faint glimmer. There, near the back hallway, the old banister sparkled under a sliver of moonlight. Was it just her imagination, or was someone or something there? A whisper echoed through the corridor. "Mommy!" Her heart leapt. "Lily?" Without thinking, she dashed toward the sound, her feet pounding against the floor as she reached the end of the hallway. A door stood ajar, a flickering light spilling out like a beacon of hope. She pushed the door open wider, her breath hovering in her throat. Inside, dolls littered the floor, their glassy eyes reflecting her fear. There was an old wooden trunk in the corner, and her instincts told her it was significant. She crept closer, the whispers growing louder. "Help us! Where are you?" she cried, her voice trembling and small. The world around her was a grotesque mockery of playtime. Then, from the other side of the trunk, she heard a soft thump, then another. Like a rhythm beating against her heart, it pulled her closer to it. Jessica hesitated, fear roiling in her stomach, but she had to know. With a trembling hand, she lifted the lid. The trunk creaked open, and inside, a swirl of cobwebs unfurled, revealing faded toys and something dark at the bottom. Jessica leaned closer, taking a big breath, her heart hammering louder than ever as she tried to make out the figure smudged beneath the dust. A pair of tiny shoes left behind. Her breath hitched. They were Tyler's. Grief clawed at her throat, mingling with dread. "Tyler! Lily!" Suddenly, the doors slammed shut behind her with a deafening bang. She spun around, eyes wide, gasping. Colin stood there, that twisted smile now a grimace of expectation. "Ready to play?" he hissed, his voice caressing her ears. Jessica's back slammed against the trunk, the toys began to rattle. Her mind raced. She needed to fight, to unleash her motherly strength. She glanced again at the trunk, her heart racing against the chilling reality. Mr. Collins stepped closer, shadows reaching out from him, wrapping around her legs. "Their giggles will be the last sound you hear. In that moment, her steel will ignited. We'll see about that," she yelled, lunging toward him. But before she could reach him, the room shifted. The walls undulated like waves, the darkness mixing with light, creating a vortex of despair. Jessica felt herself being sucked into the shadows, her body pulled away from the door. "Mommy!" The shout shot through the madness, carrying hope against the tide of terror. Jessica's eyes widened. "Tyler!" She twisted in the shadows, clawing against the floor as the voices rose to a cacophony of laughter and despair. All at once, she broke free of the dark grip, gasping for air as the weight of the house pressed down from above. But she couldn't stop. If her children were trapped in this hell, she needed to find them. With renewed determination, she pivoted back toward the door, only to find it had vanished, replaced by a wall of darkness. Her breath became frantic. Where were they? A shriek erupted behind her, followed by the sound of soft running footsteps echoing through the hall. "Mommy, help!" The voice was so faint, so close yet out of reach. Jessica's heart raced as shadows converged on her from all sides. "Come to me!" she shouted, desperately searching for any way out. With fear coursing through her, she plunged into the darkness, hoping against hope it would lead her to her children. But as she ran, she felt the shadows hardening like walls around her, and she realized this house was hungry. What unseen forces lurked beneath the surface, and would she be able to find her children before the house had its fill? The weight of darkness pressed against Jessica, squeezing her heart with icy fingers as she plunged further into the void. Every step felt heavier, as if the floor itself conspired to suppress her, pulling at her legs with a desperate grip. Her scream echoed futilely back at her, swallowed whole by the consuming blackness as she stumbled further into the unending hallway. "Tyler! Lily!" The names tore from her throat like a mantra, but their sweet faces were overshadowed by the gnawing chill that snaked up her spine. If they were there, if they could hear her. The footsteps grew louder, a staccato rhythm that blended with the hollow laughter of unseen children, flitting in and out of her consciousness. "Mommy!" The call threaded through the dark, curling around her heart and pulling her toward hope. She sprinted down the hall, her breath coming in frantic bursts, each footfall echoing off the walls that seemed to shift and sway. Was it her imagination, or did the floor beneath her pulse like a living thing? The air turned thick, suffocating, wrapped in an eerie silence punctuated solely by the sound of her heartbeat. Then she saw it, the faint light flickering in the distance, a weak ember in the vast darkness. With renewed urgency, Jessica rushed towards it. Even the shadows couldn't swallow her hope entirely. "Please, please," she whispered, the light growing closer, illuminating warped faces of porcelain dolls hanging on the walls, their eyes glistening like whetstones. As she neared the door where the light flickered, her hand reached out, trembling. Suddenly, an anguished wail cut through the air. "Help us! Mama!" Jessica halted, the sound clawing at her insides. It was Tyler's voice. Panic surged anew. His voice was only footsteps away, but also buried under the weight of despair. "I'm coming!" she shouted, throwing the door open with such force it banged against the wall, casting a creepy shadow on the floor. Inside, the ghostly glow illuminated a room filled with trapped spider webs of dark threads slinking against the corners, bulky furniture warped into grotesque shapes that seemed alive. And in the center stood a puppet stage, draped in tattered cloth, where a life-size marionette dangled obscenely, its strings taut. "Tyler! Lily!" Silence greeted her, thick and stifling. The air buzzed with an unsettling energy as she stepped inside. Suddenly, a flurry of movement caught her eye. A shape darted from the corner of her vision. "Mommy! In the closet!" Jessica spun around, heart hammering against her ribs as she found a small door at the end of the room, tugged slightly ajar. She rushed towards it, the shadows swirling vigorously around her. The laughter intensified now, mocking, insidious, crescendoing into a cacophony of chaos behind her as she approached the door. Gripping the handle, dread pooled in her stomach. What awaited her behind that door? The whispers morphed into guttural growls that stirred primal fear. She twisted the knob and threw the door wide open, expecting to find Tyler and Lily, but instead, the darkness poured out like smoke, billowing and swirling, chilling her to the bone. "Tyler! Lily!" The words erupted from her like an incantation, laced with desperation. The shadows thickened, a tangible barrier now swirling around her limbs. They wrapped tighter, squeezing, dragging her away from the doorway. Jessica fought fiercely against it, clawing at the air as the voices transformed into twisted chants, reverberating through the room. "Join us." "No! I wouldn't let you take me." With one last gasp of air, she yanked herself free, stumbling back and crashing against the wall. Searching desperately, she noticed a flicker of light beneath a pile of discarded toys by the puppet stage. "Mommy, help!" It was her children's cries echoing from the pile. Jessica rushed over, yanking aside the toys, sweat dripping down her brow. But just as her fingers touched what felt like a small wrist, a cold laughter erupted from behind her, echoing like thunder in the small room. "Playtime isn't over yet, dear mother." Her heart plunged as she turned, dread flooding her system. The marionette, no longer a mere doll, now stood tall, its eyes glowing with malice as it pointed toward her children. Would she have the strength to reclaim her kids, or would the shadows finally win the terrible game they had already begun? Jessica's heart raced as she faced the marionette, its lifeless face now animated with spiteful glee. The flickering light seemed to highlight its jagged grin, twisting her fear into something more primitive, more raw. "Let them go!" she screamed, her voice barely echoing against the dark walls. The marionette wobbled forward, its wooden limbs creaking as if awakening from a long slumber. It stepped closer, invading her space as the shadows shifted, pulsing like a heartbeat around her. "Why would I do that?" it crooned, the voice a sickly sweet melody. "They're having so much fun with us, aren't you?" Jessica felt the chill of its words seeping into her bones, mingling with the terror that gripped her. She turned back to the toys, clawing through the mess, hope flickering like that dying light. Tyler! Lily! Hold on! Mommy, help! Their cries were muffled, like echoes from a deep well, but her focus didn't waver. Each object she tossed aside revealed not just toys, but remnants of her children's laughter, stained with darkness. A doll with its porcelain face cracked, a teddy bear missing an eye, things that had once been joyful now dripped with sorrow. Isn't it beautiful here? The marionette hissed, closing the distance with slow, deliberate strides. So many friends to play with. The children never leave. Jessica's breath caught in her throat. What did you do to them? She demanded, her voice trembling, igniting a spark of defiance within her. She could feel their presence, could feel them begging for her as the dark tendrils attempted to constrict her again. Just a little fun. They'll be wonderful forever. Just like me. It flashed its monstrous grin, twirling on its strings that undulated in the darkness. The room twisted and warped, furniture stretching and contracting, as she fought against the shadows flailing around her legs. Get away from them! She cried. But her words pierced nothing but the air. The laughter was overwhelming, choking her cries. From the pile of toys she pulled more, heart racing as she felt the outlines of their little bodies. This isn't your game. Emboldened, she lifted a large, light-up toy truck, triumph flickering in her chest. I'll make you play my way! With a shout, she hurled the truck at the marionette. It struck the thing's head, a loud crack slicing through the thick tension. For a brief moment, the puppet staggered back, its strings vibrating unnaturally, like a startled insect. Suddenly, the marionette's malice flared. You dare disrupt our play? Its voice boomed, filling the room with raw, aching rage. The laughter shifted, morphing into a storm of chaos, like 1,000 hidden voices crying out in fury. Shadows leapt and lunged at her, wrapping around her arms and legs like desperate hands grasping for salvation. Come back, children, back to the darkness, the marionette commanded, its eyes blazing. A scream ripped through Jessica, a winter's chill filling her veins. The darkness clawed at her, consuming her hope. Tyler! Lily! But the marionette stepped forward again, held captive by its strings, forcing her into submission. The light from the toys flickered violently, both warning and pleading. Then, in that moment of vulnerability, Jessica heard a small voice rise from the depth of the shadows. Mommy, please, help us! A shudder ran through Jessica's body, pulling her into a void of despair. The weight of the marionette's gaze pressed against her, and she fought to breathe, to think. What if they were lost too? What if she was the one to let them down? The puppet lunged, its arms extended, stretched like spider legs, ready to snatch her into the abyss. Are you ready to join us, dear mother? At that moment, amid the chaos, a thought crystallized in Jessica's mind. She had to find her own voice. She couldn't let it all end here. Not today! She screamed, the determination filling her lungs. But as she readied herself to take action, the shadows pulsed again, amplifying the dread swirling around her. Something shifted behind her, a deeper darkness unfurling, pulling her away from everything familiar. Jessica's breath turned into a frantic whisper. Do I have the power to save them, or has the darkness already won? Into the blackest void she teetered, on the brink of losing everything. Would she harness that last spark of defiance, or were they doomed to fade forever? Jessica lunged to the side, dodging the marionette's grasp as the carpeted floor felt alive beneath her, twisting and curling as if it had teeth. Shadows slinked toward her ankles, hungrily reaching for any warmth they could claim. She could not let panic overwhelm her, not now, despite the sobs of her children echoing from the suffocating darkness. Lily! Tyler! She clawed through toys, her fingers numb and shaking. The marionette glared down at her, that horrid grin full of mockery. Do you truly believe you can save them? Look at the fun they're having! It taunted, spinning wildly, its strings unraveling in a mesmerizing dance. Moments stretched, draped in silence but for the persistent wails that sliced through the room. The light flicked again, the bulb threatening to extinguish, And in that flash, she swore she caught a glimpse of her children's soft silhouettes behind the marionette, eyes wide with fear and confusion. "No! You're not real!" Jessica shouted, her voice wavering. Then, with all her might, she hurled another toy, a jigsaw puzzle piece, directly at the marionette. It hit its mark, and for the briefest moment, the puppet paused, pulled by an unseen force, as if it grappled with reality. Her heart surged, hope flickering to life within the shadows. But the marionette recovered quickly. "Oh, sweet mother, you've just made this entertaining." The toy truck rolled at her feet with a dull thud, and behind her, the toys began to shift, forming a wall, a fortress of despair. The shrieks of her children spiraled into a chorus of laughter, eerie and warped, no longer just an echo but a symphony that clawed at her sanity. "Mommy, help us!" The chaos grew intense, feeding off her fear, pulling her nearer to the black whirlpool of hopelessness. Jessica pressed her back against the wall, eyes darting for any means of escape. The marionette reveled in her despair, its voice slithering through the shadows. "They adore their new friends, and soon, dear mother, you will join them. Isn't that thrilling?" "Shut up!" Jessica yelled, words rippling out like a shockwave, pushing against the oppressive gloom. She took a step, then another, determination igniting her once again. "They're not yours. You can't keep them." The marionette chuckled, but it faltered. Jessica stumbled forward, instinct guiding her, her hands trailing over the cold wood of the furniture. She could feel the fear emanating from the children, a tether pulling her closer. In that distinct moment, she spotted something shimmering at the far end of the room, a glimmer of silver intertwined among the clutter. A key? With resolute steps, she crossed to it, the air around her thickening ominously. "I'm coming for you!" she cried, desperate, tugging at her heartstrings. But just as her fingers wrapped around the cool metal, the marionette's laughter crescendoed into a monstrous roar. "You will pay for your insubordination, mother!" It lunged at her, shadows thickening around its limbs, ready to pull her into the dark. Jessica's breath hitched. Gripping the key, she turned. Would it unlock the way to her children, or was it just a cruel trick? A surge of courage beat within her, and she thrust the key into the air, like a beacon against the endless dark. "Stay away from us!" The shadows hesitated, quivering as if afraid of the light, but thick tendrils darted from the marionette, striking with violent accuracy. She felt something latch onto her arm, a cold grip, ice-like, squeezing tighter, tightening its hold. "Maybe you belong in this world after all," it sneered, its eyes reflecting a wicked hunger. Jessica shouted once more, pulling all her strength, feeling the pressure of time slipping. She had to act fast. In the depths of tumult, the fleeting cries of her children gave her resolve. They were counting on her. "Not today!" she yelled, brandishing the key before her like a sword. Yet the shadows lashed out, seething, and the marionette's smile twisted into an expression of pure malice as darkness enveloped her. Would her desperate grasp for salvation be enough to unveil the truth or lead her into a deeper abyss? As she sank into the tendrils, she felt the pull of the marionette's grip, and all hope began to waver. Would this key be her salvation or her damnation? The room spun wildly, and Jessica's yell was swallowed by shadows. The darkness was so warm, so inviting. But even beneath that allure, a flicker of defiance burned inside her. Would she succumb, or find the strength to fight? The echoes of the children's laughter filled her ears. Suddenly, the chaos cracked, and a voice soft and familiar rose above the cacophony. "Mommy, we believe in you." Was that her children calling for her? A final chance to break free or let the darkness claim them? The choice lay thick in the air, palpable, urging her toward one desperate answer. With a final push, Jessica prepared to unleash all her fury against the looming terror. "Let us do this!" she screamed, charging forward. Would her bravery tear through the fabric of this nightmare, or would the darkness snatch her away entirely? The shadows rippled around her, a living mass eager to devour. Jessica felt the icy fingers clutch her tighter, wrapping her in cold tendrils that whispered sweet nothings of surrender. But she clung to that flicker of hope, the echo of her children's faith igniting a fire inside her. "Mommy, We believe in you, the words reverberated, mixing with the muffled laughter that danced around her like eerie echoes in a hall of mirrors. With her heart pounding, she jabbed the key forward, hoping it wouldn't falter in the face of such darkness. The marionette snarled, its grin twisting as it lunged with a life all its own, sharp and menacing. "Stop! You think that pitiful key can save you?" it howled, its voice dripping with malice. Jessica felt a surge of power coursing through her as she spoke the words that rippled through her soul. "You have no power here!" In that moment, the shadows recoiled, as if stung by the very light of her conviction. Triumph swelled within her, pushing her to step forward and thrust the key toward the marionette. There was a blinding flash, a moment where everything froze. And then the world exploded into chaos. The marionette screeched, a sound that could shatter glass, as bolts of shadow ripped from it, lashing out in every direction. The once familiar room twisted and writhed, furniture veering into surreal forms, elongating, stretching beyond the limits of reason. Jessica gasped as her body swayed violently, pulled into the vortex of an unseen storm. "Mommy!" the voices of her children cried, desperately reaching through the tumult. Their fear was tangible and laced with panic, fueling her impulse to fight harder. She refused to let them slip away. "Stay together!" Jessica yelled, her voice fighting valiantly against the overwhelming darkness. She narrowed her eyes, focusing on the marionette that danced back, recovering from the flash like a beast regaining its breath. Its strings extended, catching glimmers of light and glints of sharp silver. "Foolish mother! You think you can escape?" it hissed, its grin stretching to an unnatural length, shadows pooling around it like venom. Jessica's heart raced, the pressure of despair squeezing her chest. The world around her felt like a coiling snake, ready to strike. But she didn't falter. Rummaging through her mind, she recalled the key. It was meant for a lock, an escape hatch from this cursed reality. "Where are you, my kids?" she screamed, fighting the choking darkness. The shadows hissed, trying to smother her voice, but it shattered through like a beacon. "I will find you." She took a step, then a leap. The floor tilted beneath her, but she refused to yield. The marionette's form lurched forward, angry sounds erupting as it unleashed more shadows, thickening around her, pulling her back. "Join your little ones in oblivion!" it snarled as the tendrils surged. Jessica felt herself trapped again, a fateful grip closing around her throat. Just when it seemed hopeless, she yelled out, "This is not over!" In one swift, desperate motion, she turned the key in the air, spinning it like a top. The air shimmered and distorted, producing a low hum that vibrated through her bones. The marionette faltered, shadows repelling as if they feared her defiance. Could it be? The key began to glow, brightening the chaos around her, illuminating a path she could barely see. She could hear her children's voices again, clearer this time, threading their way through the nightmarish symphony of shadows. "They're here! Keep pushing!" she urged herself, plunging deeper into the light, abandoning the sinking despair of the darkness. But just as she thought she might reach them, the marionette lunged once more, this time with all the fury of a forsaken soul. It wrapped its twisted limbs around her, a vice of darkness pulling her back, slamming her against an invisible wall. "Fool!" it rasped, its eyes simmering with a fury that would swallow the sun. "You will never escape!" With everything she had, Jessica screamed into the chaos, "I will find my children!" But the last pulse of light flickered, the room darkening, shadows closing in. The marionette's grin reformed, triumphant. "You're already part of the show." The darkness surged around her, tendrils stretching toward her heart. Would this darkness claim her entirely? As the room spun, Jessica fought against the encroaching pull and ripped her gaze toward the children's cries, still echoing from within the abyss. She was so close, yet the grip of despair weighed her down. Fighting the suffocating despair, she let out one last cry. What would she discover when the darkness finally consumed her? What began as a fight for her kids turned into a thrilling race against a monstrous truth. But in the encroaching dark, would there be a way back? Would redemption find her, or would she lose the battle against the puppet master forever? The shadow swallowed her whole, wrapping around her like an old, tattered cloak. In that moment, Jessica felt the fabric of reality fraying, stitched together with threads of fear and desperation. Her screams echoed within, swallowed by an abyss that pulsed and churned, but never responded. She was lost. Tendrils of darkness began to writhe upon her skin, pulling at her sanity. The world melted away, warped by her own fright. Memories of her children surged within her, images flashing like strobe lights, laughter that turned to cries, cozy blankets replaced by cold voids. Each heartbeat was another tremble of her resolve. Through clenched teeth, she fought back against the shadows. "I won't let you take me," she hissed, inserting the key into the swirling mass of darkness. With every bit of courage she could muster, she twisted it deep into the abyss, desperate for a lock that would seal her fate or free her from this nightmare. The marionette's laughter surrounded her, chilling her to the bone. "Pathetic little creature! Did you believe that would work?" Shadows coiled tighter around her throat, hazy promises of oblivion dripped from its lips, sweetened with malice. "Get away from me!" she roared, flinging her arms. The key sparked, and a glimmer of light cut through the thick gloom, illuminating only a small circle around her. The marionette recoiled, struggling against the glow that pierced its darkness. But shadowy waves crashed against her in relentless waves, threatening to pull her under. "Where are you, my loves?" The grief in her voice was palpable as whispers of doubt crept in. "Mommy!" came the distant cries. Plunging into the light, Jessica clawed her way forward, feeling the weight of the marionette's despair pressing against her mind. She focused on the sound of their voices, letting them slice through the fog. "Hold on! I'm coming!" In the distance, she saw them, her children, small silhouettes against the oppressive dark. They twisted and turned, reaching out for her, drifting closer and further, like mirages in a scorching desert. Desperation drove her, and she lunged. The shadows lashed out, sneering, "You can't have them!" "Enough!" Her voice rang clear, the echo of authority shattering the dark. With a fierce determination, she grasped the key, unleashing a wave of radiant light that exploded forth, splashing against the marionette. Its eyes widened, disbelief storming its features. It had never expected to confront such defiance. The shadows shrieked as they detangled from her, scattering like frightened rats from the dawn. "Mommy!" Closer now, lifelines rode the crest of the chaos, guiding her toward the children. But just as she reached out, the marionette surged forward with a howl of fury, its strings snapping and swirling like a tempest of darkness, ensnaring her once more. "Foolish mother!" it screeched. "You will lose everything!" A dark laugh bounced against the walls, swirling, vibrating through the torment. Intangible hands gripped her soul, squeezing tighter. She thought of her children, their sweet faces blurring in the fog, flickering like flames in a windstorm. In a moment of cruel clarity, she understood the marionette had ensnared her, twisted her memory until she stood on the precipice of losing everything she loved. Despair coursed through her veins, threatening to drown her spirit. But deep down, the fire that ignited her long ago flickered again. "Not yet," she whispered, focusing on the key. Its glow pulsed as she channeled her will, pulling against the shadows that sought to claim her. The air thickened with tension. Would the key unlock salvation, or would it be her undoing? Then, in one swift moment, her doubts burst into rejuvenating flames. "I will find my way," she declared, and with a rush of energy, she swung the key high above her head, summoning every ounce of light she could muster. And in that instant, the shadows quivered, a wave of dread washing over the marionette. In unison they recoiled, revealing a path carved in brilliance that set her heart racing. But as she dashed towards hope, she felt something slithering along her ankle, pulling her back. "Join us," it hissed, its voice a dark lullaby. Panic washed over her. What if the light would not be enough? What if the darkness devoured her whole, leaving only a hollow shell behind? The battle had only begun, but the outcome hung in the balance. Would she unlock the door to her salvation, or would the puppet master claim victory? What awaited her behind that blinding light? Would courage be enough? Jessica pushed through the bright path, feeling the warmth fill her aching soul. The path flickered, but she kept running, desperate to escape the clutching chill of the shadows. They hissed and howled, their voices a cacophony of pain, anger, and eternal despair. Each sound was a wave crashing against her sanity, eroding her resolve. "Jessica! Don't leave us!" The cries of her children drowned out the frantic whispers. They wound around her heart, binding her to the path she found. She sprinted forward, hands reaching out to grasp for them. But just as the light became a beacon, it dimmed. A dark wave surged, swallowing her courage. Shadows tightened around her once more, tugging, pulling, clawing at her limbs, echoing the marionette's taunts. "You foolish thing! You can't escape! You're only delaying the inevitable." Ice gripped her heart. Panic surged as she stumbled, momentarily losing her grasp on the key. The light flickered again, and she felt its energy slump. For the briefest of moments, everything turned black. "Mommy!" Her children's voices were muffled, an echo from far away, drifting further with every second. Just as she gathered herself, she heard the marionette's laughter surge back, a sinister melody that sent chills down her spine. "Do you think you can play mother here? You won't survive this twisted game." The shadows tightened, squeezing her throat until her breath came in ragged gasps. Jessica dropped to her knees, the key skidding away across the cold, hard surface. "No, no, no!" Stumbling, she lunged toward the key, but the darkness coiled tighter like a snake, snatching it and pulling it into the abyss. "You will never reclaim that lost treasure!" The marionette's voice twisted into a horrid mockery, accompanying her children's fading cries. It was a cruel game, and every move sent her spiraling deeper into hopelessness. Jessica clawed at the ground, but instead of dirt and earth, her fingers touched something slick, almost fleshy. She flinched, recoiling instantly at the foul texture. The shadows pulsed beneath her, almost alive, almost sentient. They seemed to laugh as she collapsed. Suddenly, a thought struck her. Was there another way? The light. It must still be there, somewhere in her soul. The key had merely been an extension of her spirit. Rising with newfound fury, Jessica screamed into the void, "You win! I am their mother!" Clenching her fists, she summoned what she could, the energy radiating from her heart. Sapphire light erupted from within, exploding outward in a storm of luminescence that drove back the shadows, if only for a heartbeat. The marionette shrieked in rage, its face distorted with fear. "You dare defy me?" But Jessica's energy surged, rekindling the flame of hope as she fueled it with memories of laughter, warmth, and the soft touch of her children. Light blazed around her, curving, spiraling as it blacked out the darkness. And through gritted teeth, she summoned her voice, crying out, "Hear my love!" The shadows shrieked and pulled back, but they didn't surrender. Jessica grunted, pushing against the wall of darkness that closed in around her, refusing to give up, refusing to let them win. In that moment of heightened struggle, she caught a glimpse of her children, their faces glowing with an ethereal light, flickering like fleeting stars. "Mommy!" they chorused. She saw it there, just beyond the marionette's grasp, a door of light shimmered. It pulsed with a heartbeat, each thump resonating with her own. Her heart raced. "I have to reach them!" But the marionette surged forward, strings extended like claws. "You belong to me!" Raw, searing desperation clawed at her throat. Time twisted as she made a final push, barreling towards the light. Would she reach it in time? Could she save her children from the puppet master, and reclaim them before they were lost forever? The shadows whipped around like a storm. Just as she thought she could feel the warmth on her skin, a chain of dark threads lashed out, tearing at the fabric of her hope. What would be left of her spirit if she failed? And then the world swirled, the light diminished, and Jessica lost sight of everything, including herself. The abyss held Jessica tightly, the dark tendrils twisting around her and pulling her down into an endless void. Time felt distorted as she surrendered to the weight of despair. Memories of her children flashed like old films, Lily's laughter dancing in the rain, Tyler's tiny hands holding hers. Those moments were her anchors, and in the depths of darkness, they ignited the embers of her courage. "Mommy!" The voices echoed, a haunting chorus that roared through the void. It was her lifeline, pulling her back from the brink. She wasn't done fighting. Suddenly, from the depths of the chill, she felt heat surging through her body, warmth swirling like a cyclone. It was her love for Tyler and Lily, stronger than any shadow. With a fierce roar, she gripped the keyless void in her hands, forcing her will into it. "You will not take my children!" As if responding to her defiance, the darkness recoiled. The shadows enveloped her, shrieking and hissing, but she pressed on. "They are not yours!" She hurled her fierce love forward, propelled by the weight of every tear, every memory, every moment they shared. With each word, the fabric of the darkness began to shred. Blinding light burst forth in all directions, illuminating the space around her, scattering shadows like dust in the sun. She felt a tidal wave of energy rise within, spiraling through her limbs. Then she saw it, the marionette petrified now, its eyes wide with terror as light washed over it, suffocating its twisted form. Its strings snapped one by one, releasing the strangled remnants of its dark power. "No! You cannot do this!" it wailed, and Jessica lunged toward her children's voices, pure and crystal clear now. "Tyler! Lily!" She felt their presence before she saw them, like a heartbeat in the dark. The silhouettes of her children emerged through the rift of swirling light, their faces desperate yet glowing bright with warmth and innocence. In a heartbeat, Jessica reached for them, the love she had fought for coalescing into a force that surrounded them all. Their hands clasped hers, fingers entwined like a chain of unbreakable resolve. "We're together, we're safe." The words flowed from her with a power that felt unstoppable. But the marionette would not yield. Dread pooled around it, its expression warped with fury. "You think you can leave? You belong to the shadows now." It lunged, a final desperate attempt to reclaim what it had lost. "No!" Jessica yelled, steeling herself, clutching her children's hands tightly. "We break free." With every ounce of resolve, she propelled the light forward once more, the strength of a mother igniting anew. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the darkness. A blinding beam shot forth from their joined hands, piercing the marionette and illuminating the void. In that moment, the shadows exploded outward like a cracked mirror, splintering into tiny fragments of darkness that dissolved into the air. Jessica's breath caught. The marionette disintegrated into wisps of despair, scattering like autumn leaves caught in a wind. As the last remnants faded, a blaring silence settled in. The oppressive weight lifted. "The curse is broken," a voice called softly. Familiar and soothing, was it the essence of Maplewood itself exhaling? A gentle warmth enveloped them, wrapping around like a serene embrace. "Mommy!" The exuberance of the children pierced the silence, as they clung to her, their joyful innocence restored. The world seemed brighter now, wrapped in a warm hue that resembled dawn breaking after a long, cold night. Trembling with relief, Jessica sunk to her knees as they embraced, tears washing away the remnants of fear. "I was so scared I thought I lost you forever," she whispered through ragged breaths. "Never, Mommy. We're always together," Tyler said, his little hands wiping her tears away. "Let us go home," Lily chimed in, the sincerity of her words threading through the remnants of darkness still lingering at the edges of their thoughts. Without hesitation, Jessica stood, her children's hands clasped within hers. Together, they stepped towards the ever-growing light, the remnants of their town's past fading like a bad dream. This time, they would carry each other. Their solidarity illuminated the path ahead, clear of shadows and filled with their united presence. Maplewood stood before them, familiar yet transformed, bathed in a gentle light that felt vibrant and alive. The dark corners, once haunted with whispers of forgotten fears, now shimmered with the vitality of hope. "We'll remember," Jessica inhaled deeply, sensing the freshness of a new beginning. They wouldn't allow history to repeat. They would breathe life back into their town, weaving joy into its tapestry while leaving the dark tales behind. And as they walked forward, hand in hand, a sense of freedom washed over them, a reminder that love would always conquer. They carried the scars of their struggle, yet from this night, they bloomed into the strength of resilience. The spell of Halloween had been broken, not just for them but for Maplewood too. It was time to turn a new chapter, under the light of togetherness, forever. You need to subscribe now to catch the next pulse-pounding narrative. Don't miss a single moment. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm and keep us alive. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this sparkling new epilogue. Keep the magic alive!